So first things first, it's good to see you all. Welcome back to the Backstage community session. This is the August session. We skipped the July session due to the summer holidays. However, we did not skip the release, the 141, according to that July, which we're going to cover in a little bit. So just to give you a short update on today's agenda, we're going to cover the releases highlights. So we're going to cover both the 141 and the 142 that we just shipped yesterday with some breaking changes that I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions. We've seen a lot of good feedback coming in already through Discord and the regular channels. Then we're going to have a short NFS demo with Ben here. And then I just want to touch base briefly on BackstageCon for the North America edition. And as always, we're going to open the floor for some Q&A at the end. That said, Freben, do we have you here in the room? Do you want to take the 141?
Yes, yes, sorry. Right, so there were a couple of things that happened for sure for these 2 months. Let's go through some highlights. There was a breaking change to the Catalog Backend that entailed making a new major version release of it. A quick summary of it is that things that used to be opt-in are now made the defaults in general. There are things such as deferred stitching, if you've ever heard of the concept. There are faster and less memory pressurable streaming responses and things like that. They're now enabled by default. This should allow for significant speed ups and safer operations. So we thought that the time had come for everyone to benefit from this. You can still opt out of them, but most probably will not want to. Another important change there is that we also enabled more eager deletion. The catalog used to be fairly defensive about when to delete things. Now it's a little bit more eager to do so when you delete your sources for those entities. More about that in the release notes, of course. Another important change was that we changed some of the permissions in the scaffolder. Mainly, we made some permissions into resource permissions that usually before weren't, and the permissions you needed to retry tasks were refined a bit. We also made it easier to do ownership-based policies. Not a huge change, but still breaking, so it's worth highlighting. The new UI library for Backstage used to be called Canon was renamed to Backstage UI. Development continues, but under a new name. There was also some improvements to the Yarn plugin that lets you add new dependencies and automatically get the right Backstage version range and so on. So this was a welcome addition, I think, to many who were bitten by this. I can continue the next slide as well. And then a very large part of what we've focused on the last couple of months has been the new front-end system. So it's taken up most of our time as maintainers. And it's finally now marked as adoption ready. So that means that you can start to migrate your apps to the new front-end system. You don't have to immediately, but this is the point where we feel that, yes, we have settled the interfaces and the time has come for people to start moving on to it. Same for plugin adopters, to get your plugins ready to be put into people's new front-end systems applications. This is a much more powerful and flexible framework for how apps are built, and we hope that you will enjoy the improvements it brings as much as the backend system hopefully did as well. Ben will, as mentioned, demo this a little bit later, but I'll go through the rest of the points here first. Another big change is that Rspack has been available as an alternative to Webpack for quite some time in the CLI for building your applications, and it has now been set to the default. We've had it available, like I mentioned, for quite some time, and it's been quite stable and brings significant build performance to the table. So we now set it as default for everyone. You can restore to Webpack. It takes a few little steps to do so. It's no big deal, and it's documented. So check out the release notes if you feel that you, for some reason, do not want to go to Webpack. To Rspack. Another kind of big shift that we've been longing to for a long time is to move Kubernetes, the Kubernetes plugin to the new backend system. This was the last holdout actually for plugins to move over for a couple of reasons. And now it's happened. This also meant that the old backend common package that some of you know and lament is now completely gone. This solved some headaches and lingering security warnings, so we're super happy that finally happened. You might want to check the release notes for this one too, if you use the Kubernetes plugin, especially if you customize it. The way that you customize it changed, obviously, since things are done a little bit differently in the new backend system. So things are replaced with extension points instead of the old builder class, but it is entirely possible. Let us know if you hit any snags with that. So another point, Scaffolder is now powered by Open API. More plugins are moving in that direction of the spec first generated interfaces. And this is the most recent one, thanks to community contributions, which is very lovely. Some of the interfaces have moved around a little bit as well for the Scaffolder package. Some interfaces moved to the common package where they should have been in the first place and so on. But most people won't notice. Next point is that we also put out a security fix that ensures that secrets could not be inadvertently logged in the scaffolder under some circumstances. And yeah, with that, I think over to Ben for a quick demo of what the new Frontend system brings.
Yes, hello. Yes, so I'm going to do a very short demo of the new Frontend system. I guess a little bit of background for what the new Frontend system is. And kind of why we're doing this. So as Freben mentioned, we've been spending quite a long time over the past few months stabilizing these APIs and getting us to a place where we think now it's ready for adoption from the community. I guess if you take a look at like the current front-end system and like your app in general, there's a lot of React code going on there. Like React has always been the API of choice for us to kind of build these extension patterns and installing plugins in your app. That's done by adding JSX. That's done by writing React code. It makes plugin installation not trivial. I guess it's like one of the biggest kind of downsides of this is that you have to go and write code to install plugins, and we want to remove that barrier. I guess like you look at the backend system, and that's kind of one thing we had in mind there is simplifying the backend installation process so that you didn't have to go and wire all these things or wire all the dependencies up yourself. Like you can just go and add the package, one line of JavaScript or TypeScript, and go and add it to the backend, right? And I think we're at a point where we mostly agree that like the backend system the new backend system was a great idea. Like we're kind of at that point now where we can look back and go, wow, yeah, previously it was a lot more to manage, but now it's a lot easier. So we want to get significantly less code for you to own, right? So like removing a lot of that boilerplate wiring together, making plugins easy to install. Yeah, so I'm going to dive in with a little demo now and just kind of show you what the new front-end system enables. I've given a similar demo like other KubeCons as well, but just kind of to set the scene a little bit that you can now go ahead and do this. I'm going to try and share. Let's see if Zoom is happy. Let's see, how do I even do this? I think it's this. Oh, 1 second. I might need to quit and reopen Zoom. Fun. Give me a brief second. Yeah, give me 1 sec. I will rejoin.
While Ben does that, I actually realized, Freben, sorry, I just injected the catalog performance improvements that I forgot to mention here. I think Drodil found some nice ways to remove the need for some for unneeded ordering to make catalog faster and more efficient. So yeah, go ahead and upgrade that once to make that conversion happen and then enjoy a smoother catalog experience afterwards. Thank you, Drodil, for that. I just saw your name in the participants list and I realized that this was mentioned as well and I forgot to add it to the slide. So sorry for that. Thank you for the contribution. And I'll leave this on until Ben rejoins.
Yeah, I am back. I am sorry. It also decided to install 4 updates while I also restarted. That was nice. All right, let's try now, see if this works. Replace current share, and then if I do this. All right. Now hopefully you can see a screen, right? You can see something, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So we have shipped support for being able to scaffold new Backstage apps with the new front-end system out of the box. So you can do that. That's kind of what I'm going to show here, is just kind of setting up a new app with the new front-end system. So if I do this, so I'm going to create a new Backstage app using the next flag, which is the new front-end system support. We love live demos, so this is going to be fun if this doesn't work. But anyway, create a name. I'm just going to call this community session, and we will call it August because I might have done one in the past. So this is going to go off and create us a new Backstage app with the new front-end system set up already for us. It's very bare bones at the minute. There's not really much in there. But hopefully once this yarn install runs, this shouldn't take too long, I don't think. And then I can start the app and can show you what's going on. Come on. Elevator music, first while it waits and loads, run some TypeScript. All right, cool. So now it's running. So I'm going to click yarn. I'm going to go into the repo first and then run yarn start. And then hopefully this should pop up here. So if I click enter, I can see that I have a Backstage app. Like I said, very bare bones. We got like the catalog and the scaffolder installed. And if I just go and quickly open up what this thing looks like, I'm going to drag this over here. So a little bit of a tour around the repo here is we have our packages folder, we have our app, and inside here, our app.tsx is a lot smaller now. So like you'll see in your own installations, you've got a load of React here, a lot of routes set up and registered. But here we're just including some packages. Now, by default, like it will go and detect what's inside the package JSON for you. So if I see in the package JSON, I've got a few plugins in here, and it's going to go and add them to the app for us automatically too. Installing new plugins now just become as simple as going to add a package to this dependencies list. So if I head back to the terminal here, go into the app package, and let's go and add a package of Backstage, add Backstage community, and then let's do plugins tech radar. Is that going to work? This is going to go and install, and then if I run, just head back to the root and run yarn start again, I hopefully should have the tech radar installed. And now we can see the tech radar plugins have been added. So this is kind of where we're heading, right? Look, we want to be able to install plugins pretty simply. We want to basically push a lot more sensible defaults to the plugin, including like where they're rendered, what their mount, the routes are. And this is kind of the responsibility now of the plugins and the framework themselves itself. So yeah, that's where we're heading. We now are encouraging people to migrate their apps. So there's a way that you can run like your existing React tree, if you like, or like the stuff that you've got in your app today. You can run it in a hybrid mode where we will go and collect all of the plugins that you've got set up in this routing tree and kind of polyfill, if you like, between the two systems so that you can run some plugins in the new system and some plugins in the old, and then migrate gradually, basically, so you don't have to do it as one big release. We pushed this out yesterday. We have been firefighting a little bit because, as is tradition, when we release things to the wild, they sometimes have some issues, but we're working through some of the small things that we've found so far. But yeah, we are very excited to see what the future holds here for the new front-end system. And yeah, please go and migrate and leave us some feedback through Discord or GitHub. And yeah, let's see what you build with it, I guess. Yeah, that's all I have really for a demo. I think, Mihai, are we going to jump into Q&A for the rest of the meeting?
Yeah, I just want to touch base a bit on KubeCon.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, happy to steal the screen.
Stop sharing. There you go.
No worries. Hopefully this works. All right, so that was, thank you, Ben, for that. And then last but not least, before we move on to the Q&A, just wanted to touch base. I know it's just end of summer, people still coming back and whatnot, and the KubeCon and BackstageCon feel like such a far away event, but time flies, as we've seen. So I just wanted to check in that we start to see the confirmations of the talks and the schedules and everything of what goes in. It sounds like a large group of folks on our end will be there. So I just wanted to, obviously, in the next community sessions, I'm gonna keep talking about this as we get closer to the event. But today I just wanted to sort of like tease a little bit on. We hope to see as many of you as possible and there. And yeah, just to confirm, we're gonna have the usual presence at the event in Atlanta there for the North American KubeCon. So stay tuned for more updates as we obviously get closer to the event. And that said, yeah, let's open up the floor for some Q&A. I've seen some stuff in the chat. I think, Freben, you've already answered the question in there, but yeah, I'll stop. I can't find my chat to see where the notes are. But yeah, basically, feel free to ask any question that you have regarding the 141, 142, the NFS, or whatnot. The floor is yours. Preben, you want me?
Yeah,
Preben, you want me
maybe
to...
I should just start with the ones that were written down for now.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
to
go ahead.
Respond properly, so to speak. So yeah, is it a reason that it's still behind the --next flag if it's ready for adoption? Yeah, so just like with the new backend system, we find that it's a bit abrupt to have it at the exact same moment in time to leave alpha and to push on everyone. Since the old system is functional and still around, we leave it a little bit like this, let people use it, get it a bit weathered and tried and true, and then we flip it over to everyone to be the default soon after, right? We don't intend to leave this for a long time, but just like with the backend system, we want to leave a little bit of a window in between usually before we make it the forced default for everyone, basically.
Yeah, I guess one other additional point is that plugins today, especially like community plugins, we still really want them to catch up and start using the new front-end system, because then it makes installation a lot easier. Like there is compatibility wrappers for you to use to convert an older plugin into the new front-end system, but ideally, we don't really want to have them polluted so much in people's app, right? It would just be great if the ecosystem was up to date and we had these plugins that you could just install off the shelf and they support the new front-end system, etc. So I guess we're going to wait a X period of time before turning it on by default, so people can just add plugins, and the experience is much more smooth than adding these wrappers everywhere.
Yeah. There was also a question about whether we want to, if you don't want this entry to be in the side menu, can we remove it, or will I try to re-add it? Yeah, that's one of the changes with the backend system, with the new front-end system, that things are more granular. So when you install a package like he did in the demo here, then that actually ends up adding a bunch of little individual things like a sidebar item and a routable page and maybe other things, right? And those have an ID, and in your config you can choose like keep the page, but I don't want the sidebar item. Then everything keeps functioning the way it used to. You can also in your app config say that I don't like that the catalog is on /catalog. I want it to be on the root /. Then you just set that also in your app config. You don't need code. You don't need to think about the wiring and how things fit together, but instead you can reconfigure in general most things very dynamically and nicely. Sorry, I see you have your hand up, Benjamin. I didn't see that first. Sorry, you wanted to maybe follow up on the first one.
Yeah, no worries. It's kind of related, kind of not. Yeah, I don't want to turn this into a sales pitch, but I was wondering, like, we have a very customized Backstage instance, self-hosted. So would this technically allow us to just move everything out of the code and like into our own custom plugins and use those, for example, in Spotify portal? Or is that still something that's not viable, or that the new front-end system doesn't really bring like a lot of advantages of? Do you understand my question? It's a two-sided, I think.
Do you want to grab that, Mihai, or Ben, perhaps, or how do you best respond to that?
I can try and answer. I mean, I think that basically by moving, so the new front-end system has been kind of something we've been working on for like open source for like, oh God, I mean, it's around new backend system end, wasn't it, like 2 years ago maybe. going to start looking at this. And I think we basically just wanted to make plugins a lot easier to install everywhere. And this is kind of where we're heading, like basically removing the need for people to write code to set up, whether that's, open source or any third-party provider, really. So I think it's heading that way where people can, publish these packages and then be installed anywhere, which is nice, for sure. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Yeah, I think kind of. My question was more like, does this make it easier to migrate to like the Spotify portal, for example?
Benjamin, I can actually, I will reach out to you directly about that. And if anyone else has questions around that topic, just ping me, Alexandra Way, and I can chat with you separately about that.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Alex. I was going to say, to double down on what Ben said, that the value proposition is there, obviously for all sort of like the Backstage ecosystem. Before we move on, Alex, do you want to add your details in there, or just to make sure it's tracked in the chat as well for anyone that is watching later or whatnot?
Yeah, for sure. I'll drop my email in here, so if anyone can just reach out to me.
Awesome.
Throw in another value of the new front-end system as well. Which is really the intention for when you're building custom plugins as well. Like if you have a Backstage repo with plugins in it, to have a lot more of the plugins, like the plugin logic and code and wiring, live within the plugin itself. So plugins, like there's a value to plugin isolation, even like in a Backstage repo, even if you're not installing third-party plugins. Right, even for your own custom plugins, because as an instance grows, even all of your own kind of custom plugins can start interacting a lot with each other and kind of have some breakdown in isolation. So the new front-end system kind of helps wrangling a very large project as well in a nice way.
All right, thank you.
Maybe Patrick, if you're up for it, the next question from Brent, if you want to.
I was waiting for that one, yeah. Rspack migration limited to CLI. I don't know of any usage of Webpack and Rspack outside of the CLI. So I think that answers the question, as in I don't think there's any other parts to consider, and we're effectively fully migrated over to Rspack by default now. Unless I missed something, maybe please chime in again if there's any other aspect of the usage of Webpack and Rspack.
And then the next one about timeline for making NFS default. I recall that the new backend system had a deprecation or migration period of about a year. So there's probably going to be several steps to it, right? I don't have an exact timeline to share now. We will probably at some point. But for entirely removing old things, that is further away in the future than just switching over the defaults, right? So it's going to be a step-by-step thing. I guess we'll communicate that on the time when we know more, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's also very similar to the old backend system in that the system is not, it's a very hard thing to deprecate, I guess. Like we have, certain APIs that obviously we can deprecate and move forward, like remove eventually. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit, there's going to be a crossover period for sure. Hopefully not as long as a year if we can. That would be nice, but we can, reach out with some more information or more details for a deprecation plan for the old framework, or the old front-end system for sure.
Yeah, making it default is probably going to be fairly eager. Coming to the point of entirely deleting the core app API package might be further away, right? And stop having it in the repo, so to get technical. Right. John says, because my app config file wasn't already big enough. Yeah, so I think, though, it's worth calling out that much like the backend system, the front-end system really tries hard to have sensible defaults for everything. It's been part of the mindset. The idea is that your ideal config file only states app : packages all, which is the auto detect setting. I think that's even the default now. So essentially, you should be able to just add packages to your app, and they will be auto discovered like in the demo, and usually that's enough. And then you only start adding things to the app config if you want to override things and get creative. And we want to design things in such a way that that happens as rarely as possible. But we know that users love to customize their apps. So yeah, there might be some app config writing, of course, granted. Yeah, should I keep going, or? There's a tricky one here for maybe that's also, I don't know, Patrick, perhaps. What's the process of becoming a part of the review group?
I should reply to that by having a look at what we've documented for it. Hold on.
Yeah, I pointed the PR in there. Maybe I should just, point at the governance doc itself, but yeah.
I think it can still be TLDR'd as reach out. But let me see if there's any more information.
Part of the background behind that question is just I've noticed quite a few PRs, and yeah, selfishly, one of them's mine, but I've noticed quite a few, especially that are associated with home maintainers that have been waiting on review for months, like 5 or 6 months. So, but I don't want to be a complainer. I want to be part of the solution. That's also part of the reason I'm asking. Like, is there ways for other people can also try to say, hey, I want to be part of that review group to help take some of that load off, since it's volunteers, right? We're all part of the community.
That also sounds like a more specific problem that we might look into as well. I would love for a reviewer system where it's possible to kind of trade reviews a little bit more, as in you get some reviews on your PRs by helping review other people's PRs in a more systematic way. Don't know how to set that up or like implement that in practice. So any ideas or pointers towards existing solutions and so on are welcome.
Yeah, just something to note there, Patrick, that the reviewer role has been literally added, like 2 weeks ago, or like complemented to the governance model, I think by Paul. So I pasted there in the channel. Like, there's like a tactical approach here and a strategic one to your question, Zachary. Like, tactical one, feel free to reach out in there. Again, there's like some pre-requirements and sort of like responsibilities and how to get there specifically on the review. And I think strategically there's the other angle of like, how do we mitigate the load on a sort of like growing problem and on a growing project. So obviously there's more work that we're aware of it, we're aware of the problem, and we're working on mitigating that in the near future.
The React Router one is interesting. So the question from Axel is, just notice React Router went stale beyond stale. I think we're referring to the issue and not React Router as a framework or as a library. Will the new frontend system make that harder or simpler or none? So I guess we haven't. Oh, and Patrick just reopened it. I see. So I think the last time we spoke around React Router 7 is they were making some interesting choices, I think, on the future, like what they wanted their V7 API and future to look like, which may or may not have been compatible with what we wanted to do with Backstage. I can't remember. I think we were going to wait to see how it panned out with their library and see if they were going to be compatible with us. But otherwise, we might just build something simple in Backstage, I guess, to replace it with. It gets a little bit tricky with there's obviously the routing APIs, which are used in plugins, which are probably the more problematic parts, I guess, for us to try and support those for like older plugins, etc. But like just to see, like just to mention how, I guess, how powerful the new front-end system is that you kind of have that extension point to replace the router wherever you see fit. Now, obviously, that is not really going to work in practice for a lot of plugins that depend on React Router, right? But there is like an app router extension you can replace and test out other things if you wanted to do that too. I think we're probably still in the camp of we need to just go and investigate this and see what it's looking like before making a decision on whether we want to implement React Router 7 or if we want to build a simple router ourselves. I mean, although we have React Router, we very rarely take that much advantage of all the APIs it provides. We just use it as a very simple routing like layer, right? Just to switch between plugins and things like that. Yeah, this would be my take on it. I don't know if anyone has any other opinions.
Yeah, it's had some little quirky differences, right? The way that they interpret splats and so on that are a little bit finicky.
Yeah.
To get right and make sure that you don't break anyone out there when you migrate. So yeah, takes a little bit of care, needs a little bit of investigation.
It can always help to kind of just chime in on the issue as well. And if you think it needs priority, if you're, for example, kind of bogged down by a lot of extra logging in tests that's warning about React Router related things, can help give it higher priority.
Or even people actually doing migration and saying, hey, I hit only these two specific issues, like any input is essentially valuable, right? To help nudge and inform. Maybe that helps drive the change outside of the reviewers, of the maintainers group even in the end. So.
Cool. 34 minutes in. We still have plenty of time if there are more questions. So we can wait for a few more minutes to see if any more come in through the chat or raise your hands. All right, perhaps waiting for a few more seconds just in case someone's furiously typing, giving them a chance to press enter. Otherwise, also happy to take
I have one question maybe.
Go on.
Are you guys like planning on maybe adding, I've already had a discussion on Discord, I think Ben was involved, on adding some sort of getting started with the new front-end system to like the documentation or something, because I've been fiddling around with it in the past few weeks with the documentation on one screen and code on another, and I found it pretty hard to get into. I spent like a whole Monday this week on just reading through all the documentation, and I think I kind of figured it out how it all ties together, but I don't know, I find it pretty hard to get into like how extensions interact with extension points and that kind of stuff, while I didn't have like the same experience with the new backend system. With the new frontend system, it was definitely way harder personally.
Yeah, I think so. I brought this feedback back to the team, and I think we have some things planned to the front-end system docs to make this easier. I think we are missing a little bit of, or not a little bit, we're probably missing a fair amount of docs, which is like the kind of golden paths part of like creating a plugin with the new front-end system and like seeing how all these things fit together and explain the concepts a little bit with more like practical examples. I think we might that kind of guide, I think, is very beneficial in trying to educate people around like what all these things do, these new concepts. There is a doc.sig coming up at some point. It might be next week, I think, or maybe it's the week after, I can't remember. But I was going to bring that to them and basically say, okay, how do they have started like some golden path documentation on plugins. So I'm thinking that, hey, now's a good time for us to also bring new front-end system stuff to the table too and get all that kind of documented early in that sort of process too, so that it's a little bit easier to follow. But yeah, brought this feedback back and we have seen it, so we will act on it and try and get this looking a bit better.
Sure. Also attend and see if I can give my input. And also I saw that Freben mentioned the architecture page, and I looked into that page as well, but I still found it pretty, yeah, I find it hard to like compare with the current system. I think for you guys it's probably a little easier because you've been working on this for quite a while now, but I was still like figuring out how I was comparing to the existing system, and also indeed some practical examples because it's very theoretical on that page. So yeah, but yeah, I'll attend and see if I can share my experience maybe or contribute something.
Good.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'll fully acknowledge that this was just, the closest we have, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily a good response to it, but yes. So I see that this page is, like you say, it's very, very high level, and then the next one down, the app starts getting very technical instead. So there's a bit of a gap maybe in explaining there, like what is actually blueprints and how do they, just, yeah, an overview of what things are and why they are, I see what you mean. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that nails it. The overview is too simple, and indeed the other pages are too specific. I think there needs to be like intermediate layer. Yeah. All right, looking forward to it.
I just pasted there in the chat that yeah, it's I think next Friday, which is 29th of September. So not this one, the next one for the documentation. Yeah.
29th of August.
Oh my God, August. Come on.
I was like, wow, that is a long time away.
Sorry. I did say time flies, right? I didn't say how fast it flies.
Yeah.
Sorry. I know it's alternated with the
That's right.
scaffolder one, so yeah. It's cool.
Yeah, that also is a point. I think we are re-kicking off the Scaffolder 6 from the 5th of September. Just to highlight, more SIGs coming back. We paused them over the summer holidays. So yeah, I think it's time to restart them from the 5th.
Yeah, perhaps just a touch base there on the Zachary's point earlier as well. Like perhaps again, there is a strategic conversation to have on like mitigating the load, as Patrick and Ben said earlier. But perhaps the contributing factor to that was that some of the SIGs, if not the majority, were paused for the summer. So obviously that sort of like increased the load, since a lot of the SIGs do start with like the review, right? Like at least Scaffolder and community plugins and whatnot. So like there's sort of like contributing factor to increasing that load. So hopefully we resume those. We should see some progress there. But yeah, I don't see any other questions. Similarly, I'll pause again for like 60 seconds just to make sure people either raise their hands or ask any other questions they may have. All right, going once. Going twice. If no other questions come in, thank you so much for attending today. Please continue to channel the feedback as we release the 142 out in the wild. Enjoy the summer for the how many days are left, and hopefully a beautiful autumn coming up. And we will see you all. Yes, good morning, day, whatever you are on the planet. And we will see you somewhere mid-September, I guess, for the next edition of the community session. Thank you so much all for attending. Take good care.
Bye-bye.